I'm Merin Oleschuck, and I am a PhD candidate in the Department of Sociology at U of T, and I study food and inequality broadly. That includes aspects of foodie culture and how people's food practices vary by age, race, ethnicity, gender as well, social class and things like that. I conducted some research with what I call foodies of color in Toronto. So those are people who self-identify as foodies and who also self-identify as people of color, racialized, visible minority, depending on the kind of word that you would like to use. And so they are foodies and engage in foodie culture. And what foodie culture is, to some extent, foodies are a bit of a complex group and term because many people can identify as foodies, and that maybe many other people might not think of as foodies, but also many people can be resistant to the term. But generally, foodies are people who not only really like to enjoy food and eat a lot of it, but they also like to think about it. They like to educate themselves and learn about different types of foods and make kind of evaluative distinctions between them. They like to explore as well, which was the part that I was really interested in this kind of idea of exploration. Because there was some research done by professors in the sociology department at U of T, Jose Johnson and Sean Bauman, on foodies, and they conducted research both with self-identified foodies and did a big discourse analysis of food magazines and food blogs to determine what kind of frames, I guess, what they used to call it, but what frames would be are used to kind of legitimate food in the contemporary world. Whereas in the past it used to be this kind of very hierarchical, linear idea of like French food was the top and the kind of best type of food, and then everything was kind of below it. Whereas nowadays, within an increasingly democratic world, there's a little bit of resistance towards being, towards identifying with a sense of snobbishness with this kind of like high cuisine, gastronomy style of eating. And that's where foodie culture comes from. And so foodies then tend to, they oftentimes will know still how to order and eat in a high-class French restaurant, but they also know how to eat in lowbrow restaurants, and they eat a very wide, diverse style of foods, I guess. And the frames that they found that kind of define what good food is within foodie culture is authenticity and exoticism. And what authenticity refers to is ideas of oftentimes homemade as opposed to, say, processed and in opposition to the industrial food environment. So it's ideas of kind of made from scratch. Oftentimes it has some sort of personal connection to either like say a grandmother or say a professional chef, such as in the kind of world of celebrity chefs that we live in. Also a specific geographic area and a particular ethnic group or kind of history or tradition associated with that ethnic group. So it's oftentimes a lot of specificity that goes into what authenticity is kind of defined as. And then exoticism oftentimes refers to difference, but difference in a kind of exciting way, in the sense of novelty. So something that you haven't tried before, or that also might be very rare or unique and hard to get, hard to find. So those are the kind of frames that they find, and what struck me was that these ideas of authenticity and exoticism have very strong ethnic and ethno-racial connotations embedded within them. And so I wanted to explore that a little bit better by talking to people who consider themselves foodies and engage in foodie culture, but also consider themselves people of color. And in order to help see what their experiences tell me to be able to kind of reveal and think a little bit more closely about how ethno-racial inequalities are embedded within foodie discourse and within foodie culture.